Good evening, class. On this video is going to be my project defense of my research paper, which basically covered the creation of the Great White Fleet of 1907. It was the 26th President Theodore Roosevelt's vision to increase the might of the United States Navy, and in doing so, create a whole new fleet of 16 brand new built battleships for the United States Navy that would eventually circumnavigate the globe in a world tour, as he called it. In this paper, I addressed two simple questions. One was how the fleet would be created, such as who would pay for it. In essence, the fleet at the time cost an exorbitant amount of money, $96 million in 1908. Today's currency, that'd be $2.5 billion for 16 ships. And essentially, the second question is why it was created. So we'll start with the first rather than the latter. We'll start with the latter, why it was created. In the turn of the 20th century, the United States found itself with large overseas holdings after the Spanish-American War, especially in the Philippines and Guam and other Pacific islands that they had taken from the Spanish. And also, it put the United States on the world stage as far as becoming a new superpower. In order to match that superpower and its foreign holdings, the United States Navy was not up to par. It mainly consisted of older iron-type ships with still full sails and rigging, hardly suitable for ocean-going battle. So when Theodore Roosevelt, who was a participant in the Spanish-American War with the 11th All-Volunteer Cavalry, the famous Russian San Juan Hill, became the president of the United States, he came with a new foreign policy. And I'm sure many of you have heard it. It is walk softly but carry a big stick. Well, Theodore Roosevelt did not have a big stick, and he needed one, especially to safeguard the United States and its foreign holdings in the Philippines and its new trades as well. Every other nation had large ocean-going navies. So now is the United States' turn. In 1905, the fleet was passed in Congress as far as its creation because of another world conflict that took place in 1904-1905, and that was the Russo-Japanese War. Imperial Russia, who was in a economic decline, with Tsar Nicholas II trying to get his country back on track, declared war on Japan, who had just went into Manchuria and claimed it for itself. Well, Russia didn't like that very much, so Russia declared war on Japan, and in doing so, sent two of its fleets, the Russian Pacific Fleet and the Baltic Fleet, to basically annihilate the Japanese fleet. However, in turn, the Japanese decisively defeated both Russian fleets, and it was largely due to its navy building and naval tactic modification program they had put in place. And this really worried the West. It really worried Roosevelt. Not that there was any tensions at the time with Japan. It still worried that the new infrastructure that had been put in place from the Spanish-American War in the Philippines was close to Japan, and the United States had nothing that could even come close to defeating a fleet if their foreign interests became, under attack. So the fleet was eventually built. Like I said, it cost $96 million. The significance of this research is basically that it was the largest expenditure by the United States government in a peacetime environment. There are trends that I looked at that basically, the trends were during times of conflict, obviously more money was spent for military modernization and materials production. However, in 1905, there was no war with the United States. The United States was at peace. So the significance of building this entire fleet, $96 million, was historically significant at the time. All the sources I was able to find were speeches, Congress notes, public addresses by Theodore Roosevelt, different letters. The Department of the Navy had a large amount of different resources available to use to actually gain the numbers for the fleet and what it would cost. For the overall, like I said, $96 million for the entire fleet's creation. Uh, to summarize everything, the how and the why really worked together. The how was through tariffs, through dollar diplomacy, which was we got involved in foreign nations, their public affairs or their financial affairs. We would send loans and they would default and we would gain money off of that. Tariffs was a large portion of the money that was spent. And then basically good old fundraising that Theodore Roosevelt was able to do. He was a master of public opinion, so he went on a world tour, or basically a nation tour, to gain money for the fleet. The why was, as we discussed, was the large holdings the United States now had. So in 1907, the fleet took off on a 14-month journey around the world, and it really awed every other nation, and it was a large success. However, the downside to another historical significance of this was at the within 2 years of the fleet's completion or its cruise around the world, it was already obsolete. In 1906, the British had launched the HMS Dreadnought, which would be the precursor to all new ship designs, and the United States once again was behind the power curve. It was a very interesting project to work on. I really enjoyed it very much. A lot of good sources, primary sources through the Department of the Navy and Congress as well, really helped develop the research into what it became. Thank you.